I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
How's Toffee? Look, you can only see her tail. Just her tail. And just Chi-Chi's head. Good morning, everyone.
Before we get into the news, just to say I went to Crafts yesterday.
Yes,
I think it's finished now, but I'm going next year.
Yeah.
I loved it.
That's why we're doing this today. We couldn't do it yesterday because she was back too late.
Yeah. So maybe we'll talk a bit about Crafts towards the end
that'd
to
be
take
nice.
us take us away from.
Let's talk about favourite dogs. Let's talk about annoying dogs.
Is that all right?
Let's talk about... Yeah, no, it's fine, babe. Don't stop obsessing about the imagery. So Steph Schultz, Margaret O'Brien, Sally O'Sullivan, Nicola Randall, Tracy Norris, Della
No, I meant in
Nixon.
that we're frozen.
No, it's fine.
Oh.
Lisa Yaram, Ellery Jones, Helen Groves, Clodagh Egan, Julie Neary, Lewis Craig. Good morning, one and all. And as Nadia sort of really reiterated across her Instagram account, I think, haven't you? You've really said this is bad news. But it's not all bad news. It's not going to all be bad news.
No, more that not to join this live if you're trying to avoid the news. All the news is bad about Ukraine. There's such terrible suffering and it's just every day, it's just relentless. But yeah, so we just wanted to put a bit of a warning that if you're trying to avoid that, then maybe don't join this live. Come for the last 10 minutes or something.
Hi, Joshua Rousset.
I certainly feel, Mark, and you will know better because you've been digesting it all this morning. I've woken up to news this morning and I feel more scared than I have been. So should I be?
I know a number.
It feels like it's escalated because
I know a number of people come on here and they go, "Oh my God, if these two get really worried, then I get." Look, you know, there's no sugarcoating any of this, is there? I mean, Putin is being resisted. We're in a terrible bind in that we're rooting for Ukraine, and the more Ukraine succeed at kind of repelling Putin, the angrier Putin gets, and the more hostile he becomes, and the more savage his tactics develop. And so there's a contradiction at work where one part of us is saying, shit, Ukraine, do you have to go into some kind of enforced negotiation here and lose part of your country? And, you know, or do you fight for your country and run the risk of huge numbers of casualties and the possibility, which was very real last week, that with the Russians, you know, throwing this, you know, this sort of purported idea that
Putin,
Ukraine,
not the Russians.
that Ukraine is developing, you know, chemical warfare, that there are pathogens in labs in Ukraine that the WHO have told them to remove in case a bomb hits. All of that leads to everyone thinking, yikes, is Putin prepping for some kind of chemical attack? That's one thing. And I hate to say it, I think all of the sounds and mood music coming out of the Kremlin are exactly that. No, I agree, Mitri, but I think there's a difference between worrying and being frightened by the news and there being horrendous developments in the news. I don't necessarily think we're any closer to a nuclear war.
Good.
Really don't. I mean, it's
I
like,
suppose why I'm
I've
nervous.
said it many times, just say this quickly. He wants the legacy. He is an egomaniac, a megalomaniac. He wants the legacy. He wants small Russian children to go, Putin brought back the motherland or the fatherland.
This is an ego trip
And so,
extraordinaire.
so if everyone gets obliterated in nuclear war, that's not going to happen.
Who's he going to show off to?
Yeah, exactly. And it's as
Well, that's
simple
what
as
I've
that.
always sort of comforted myself with. But the truth of the matter is, none of us know. None of us know how crazy he is. None of us know what the plan is. But I suppose right at the very beginning, on the very first day when he invaded Ukraine, he gave a very startling warning, which was, you interfere in any way that I see as an act of war, and we're locked and loaded, and you will see horrors like you've never seen before. So that put everyone back in their box. It's like, okay, he's a lunatic, he's going to press the button. And that has just become the narrative for me now. I'm like, oh my God, you know, and with these missiles landing right on the Ukrainian...
Well, I was going to talk about that.
Yeah, which you can go to... With that, hearing that this morning,
so
I immediately go into, oh my God, this is it. NATO are now going to have to... hit the button, which means he's going to have to hit the button, and I've driven myself mad.
Well, I think the two things to say there is that Putin has ramped it up by saying, you'll see, you know, you'll have consequences you've never seen before. That was one. His other one was, I'm going to mobilise the nuclear alert to a sort of a higher state of alert than they normally are. Though, to be brutally honest with you, I've never thought that I've always thought that the Russian missiles were aimed right at our back garden and they were about to press the button at any point.
That's
to
what
be
it
honest,
felt like,
so
wasn't
it wasn't a surprise. The added issue is that Biden has added the thought that he said the line, which is a lot of people are saying should Biden be saying this sort of stuff because it gives Putin an insight on our fear in a sense. So when Biden said, as soon as American troops start shooting at Russian troops, it's World War III, that gives a huge signal to Putin, doesn't it? It kind of removes almost.
Well, he didn't actually say that. He goes, it's never a good thing.
No, it's never a good thing. But I think in
Russia.
another quote he did say that. And so, what? On the one hand, that's true, potentially. But on the other hand, it kind of says to Putin what we're scared of. And there has been a lot of chatter about whether the West's transparency about how we're feeling and what the consequences of certain things, is that necessarily a good thing? And there's a lot of people saying Biden is awful. And there's a lot of people really, really insulted by Kamala Harris's apparent smirking in many press conferences.
Does that as well. It's really weird.
But it's becoming a bit of a meme type thing, a sort of thing. But just to clarify, the big story this morning is that the Russians have hit a training facility, I think only 35 miles from the border with Poland. And it's the most sort of direct, the claim is, let's not forget, Putin said he would attack any supply, or they're a viable target, the supply lines of weaponry to Ukraine. He said it very clearly. He said that's a line, and he's as good as his word. He's taken out and killed 35 people, a training camp, which could potentially, we don't know, be an access area for weaponry into Ukraine. And that's worrying. For me, that's really worrying. Because that means he's shooting at Poland's border. And what worries me about that is these are precise missiles, but what if one just goes astray?
Well, that's what Tom Swarbrick was saying today.
Then what happens? They're actually looking at now, NATO staff have trained Ukrainians at this facility. The West have been there. We've had people there, and they are actually having to check whether with the dead, with the deaths that have happened there, are any of them from the West? Are any of them potentially NATO personnel and all that kind of stuff?
So all of these things are scary, and we
It is
can't.
scary,
That's why
yeah.
we put a bit of a warning on this live, because we can't do a jolly live, and we don't want people to listen to this that are choosing to handle it best by not listening to the news at all. But we know lots of you also probably do want somebody to talk to about it.
Yeah.
I mean, so that really worries me. I think what worries all of us are the continuous rumours about his health, his mental health. There's quite a lot of people saying there that they feel he's got nothing to lose because he's got a terminal illness. Now, again, we don't know this for fact, but it adds to the fear, doesn't it? Putrid Pukin, thank you for reminding us that that's what we're calling him, Faith. It adds to our anxiety. And I just wish we knew the facts on this or not. Then it's like, it's steroid rage, roid rage, they call it, don't they? And then again, we feel more that we're in the hands of somebody that is just a complete out of control maniac. But are we? Or are we just in the hands at the moment of somebody that is strategically planning to just take over as much as he can, like you say, get back the USSR, live his last 10, 20 years in all the glory of being the most glorious leader ever in Russia, which for me is the preferable choice. Because yes, then he's not going to want to obliterate a world that he wants to stand like a god in the middle of, saying, look how fantastic I am.
Totally agree. I mean, I think the thing that's, I think there's a bit of, how one's drawn to the awfulness. So you're driving along a motorway, you see all the flashing lights, there's a car crash. As you're driving past, you can't help but look. I think the thing around Putin's frame of mind and psychological state is an equivalent. We're all toying with and entertaining the thought that he is so batshit crazy. He's a lunatic, and he's willing to do the most ridiculous things. Countless times, it was in the Telegraph today, that the Russian military and the Western military are in constant dialogue. They navigate their way around navigate their way around the Ukrainian crisis. There'll be no agreement on whether this is a war or whether this is a sort of peace mission. So they're avoiding that. But on all other aspects, they are in dialogue, they are in discussion. It's not just Putin with a great red button at the end of his long table who goes...
Which is what your mind can go to, can't it?
But I think that's a little bit like the kind of looking at a country. I think we're all tempted to look at the abyss because as humans we are, aren't we? We entertain the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is the idea that he's an absolute batshit crazy lunatic.
Who's about to die from some terrible terminal illness.
And in the
Do you
process,
agree?
blow the
Is
world
that
up.
the thing that's scaring you the most? Now, what we got to remember is we don't know that for sure.
No, we don't. And I think it's important to know that.
And I think that we just have to separate that because at the moment, what we know is he wants Ukraine.
Yeah,
So let's just stick with that.
We have to judge it on what we do know.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing to bear in mind is he's an enormous strategist. You know, a lot of people are saying that, you know, the economic sanctions and financial situation, he totally had that sort of, you know, he was across that. You know, I mean, you know, there's an economic mechanism that's going to kick in this week that essentially reduces the Russian economy to what they call a junk status, i.e. they're defaulting on all sorts of bonds and borrowing, and they basically become isolated from the entire global economic machine. And Putin knows that, and he's like, they have in place some kind of self-sufficiency, which means it's terrible for the Russian people, but they can just step outside.
And he doesn't
of the
care
West.
about the Russian people.
No, exactly. So,
and
you know,
apparently
he's a huge
there's a lot of
strategist.
hate being passed now to the Russian people, which I just think, let's not do that, world. Let's not. Imagine what life is like for Russians at the minute. Do you know, apparently Facebook lifted their ban on hate speech to Russia. Did you hear that?
No, we talked about it on Friday.
I mean, what the fuck?
Well, no, they not only lifted it, they said if you want to
Encouraged
talk...
it.
Yeah, if you want to talk about killing Russian soldiers and Russian elite, we talked about it. Yeah.
Absolutely disgusting, and placed completely into Putin's hands to say to the Russian people, look how the world are against you.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
Okay, so just here's another thing that makes one anxious is that we don't know whether it's true or not. So we've got this whole thing about he's terminally ill, and that means he's going to be perfectly fine with it in the bubble, which is very dramatic.
Yeah.
But again, we don't know whether it's true. The other thing is just the constant drip of the sanctions will make no difference to him. The sanctions will make no difference to him. So that everything that the world is standing up together arm in arm and doing in the face of this seems to just be wiped away as nothing. But anybody that you listen to on the radio, I mean, I'm just not hearing anyone saying that it will impact enough on Putin to make a difference. And I think, I don't know about you, that's something else that makes me feel anxious, because it makes me feel like nothing can be done.
No, the economic sanctions that have been taken will destroy life for the Russian people. You know, it does put an enormous amount of pressure, but it won't happen in the...
But where does the pressure come to him?
We're only in day 18. Well, you're right. I mean, that, you know, his society will have to become even more restrictive
to control
people's anger and frustration. And also, you know...
So are we hoping for a revolution? Are the rest of NATO hoping for an uprising from the Russians in the revolution?
Well, they're saying that the only other time that the economic status of Russia was reduced to what they call junk status, i.e. worthless within the context of the global thing, was during the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917.
Well, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
So...
They were in a way the inventors of the revolution.
They are the country of revolutions in many ways. So I think the West's hope is that over a period of time it will constrict things to such... You know, we're only in day 18 of the war, aren't we? Is it day 18 or day 17? So, you know, it's not going to have impacted immediately. But like MeTube says, bread and milk have already become unaffordable to most Russians.
Another thing that I think is very worrying for people here as well is it's just like every single news... Oh my God, and every radio station, every time you turn it on, it's just going to be more crippling financially for all of us. Bread will be affected because Ukraine is such a big producer of wheat.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you're looking out to the outwards and looking at Ukraine and just heartbroken from them. And you're also looking, as it's coming towards us, could he want to take over the whole of Europe?
No.
To then...
Not at all.
Your shopping... bill.
Look, the really important thing...
Can you get your car out the drive?
But the really important thing to remember is his entire army will struggle to hold Ukraine. I mean, what he's
Yes,
doing, I
because
mean,
you've
it's
got
a
a people
massive
that
error.
are going to never fold.
No, absolutely.
But
And
he's
you've
put
got
somebody in now, hasn't he? He's put a mayor into.
well, no, he's grabbed a couple of. I'm dread to think what's happening to the
Kidnapped.
Ukrainian mayors that have been kidnapped.
God.
But numerous of, and you see all of these things. Whenever I hear that great progress has been made by Ukraine or the military or the defence, I don't get joy from that. I go, oh fuck, that's going to aggravate him. So, for example, I think about five.
Me
of,
too.
Five
Every time I read anything like that, I'm like, oh God.
5 of Putin's most senior generals and majors who have been sent out to the front line because morale is so low have all died. And that, you know, on one hand, you know, the Ukrainians will be like that, but then on the other, it's like, fucking hell, you've poked the ant's nest yet again. And, you know, what could come back at you?
Another thing that I'm just telling him all my nervous things so that he can help me not feel so nervous.
Okay.
So I listened to the ex-Ukrainian Prime Minister talking to Tom Swarbrick today and he was saying, the West, you've shown him you're scared. Mm-hmm. And you have to start striking in the air now. You have to, because otherwise he will go past here, on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And he will reach all of you. So you must fear him because you're going to be dealing with him in the same way that we are at some point. So you might as well do it now. Now, is that a man that knows something? This is what was my thought process, that we don't know. Or is this just because he's right in the flames of the horror of it? I don't think he was speaking from Ukraine, but he is going to say everything that he can to try and convince NATO to get involved in this, for it to be a World War III. They want the world. Of course they do. If I was in Ukraine, I'd be going, just come and fucking help us, whatever. If it's World War III, it's World War III. So they are in this invidious position, the leaders from around the world, where of course they want to get involved, but they know they're going to take all their people into World War III.
It's impossible.
But it just made me so nervous in saying that.
And don't get me wrong, I mean, one of the things you have to understand is that World War III doesn't necessarily even involve nuclear weaponry. So, I mean,
I suppose I'm just thinking that's the only
you know, so
thing.
they could invade, say they were to attack Poland, say a missile lands on, I don't know, Warsaw or something, you know, NATO are kicked into action. You could have a massive war of attrition along the eastern front of Europe, which doesn't involve any nuclear armory, but involves a really horrible fucking war. Do you know what I mean?
But I suppose it's because we've just got hanging over our head, because he's a nasty, nasty bully. He said right at the beginning, anyone does anything, and I'm going to nuke you. That's why we think.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I've said it many times, Putin does view localised nuclear weaponry as one justified and just one of numerous options in his arsenal.
I suppose we think of nuclear weapons.
He's seen, you know, we see nuclear. Well, did anyone see there was a sort of letter or a call out or a message collectively sent from the populations of Nagasaki and Hiroshima to Putin and the Russians saying, please don't ever repeat the dropping of an atomic bomb. I thought that was really quite emotional from the only two cities that have been hit by. And the irony is, of course, is that America's the only country to have used the atomic bomb. And so that, in a weird way, shows you that if America believes there was a right moment to do it, do you know what I mean? I mean, if you start to unpack that or go deep, as the teenagers say, you start to go mad.
Deep it.
So what I'm saying is that the reason for me it was a real concern about the Polish border thing isn't necessarily that it's suddenly going to become a nuclear conflict, but it is that it could become just a standard fucking war between NATO and Russia. And that both sides go, well, nukes
okay,
are
I
stupid.
suppose I'm thinking that a standard war, as horrific as that is, wasn't an option.
Yeah, you see, there's lots of little, you know, there's annihilation and there's peace, and then there's lots of bits in between, and you know, I don't know.
So how big is his army? Do we know?
Well, I think he can muster something like 2 million, can't he? I mean, I think that's his. But in terms of his sort of efficient army, he's got 200,000. I think that what the Ukrainians got, they had something like 46,000. I think we've got, Russia's got 2 million and Ukraine have got 200,000. I can't remember what the numbers are. We have something like 67,000. I mean, here's the thing. A lot of discussion on the radio yesterday was about conscription. Who believes conscription could come back here or should come back here. A lot of people on the radio were saying we think we should have conscription as part of the youth.
God,
I mean, a lot of people were saying that.
Oh, no.
What do you think about conscription, guys? Reese Roberts makes an interesting point, but where's it gone? Sorry, Reese, lost it. Hi, Lee. Lee's in the room.
Hi, Lee. It's all bad news here, Lee.
Reese, it's a specific piece of landmass that he would need that would cross the NATO border to trigger war intervention. So what you're saying, it would need to be a considerable bite-sized chunk.
So,
invasion
an
of
incursion.
Poland. Yeah.
Are we back to Biden's incursions, invasions?
Yeah, what's the nature of an incursion? I've noticed that, Christine Bear. I don't necessarily know what it means. Iranian guards claim ballistic missile attacks in Erbil. I did see something about an attack in the Middle East somewhere, and I thought I'd unpack that a little bit later. The other point being, you wonder whether Putin's a little bit concerned about the stretch of his army, because he's called in 18,000, what he calls 18,000 soldiers volunteering
Mercenaries.
from the Middle East.
Yeah.
That's his generic description. But he's also sending in mercenaries. I mean, it sounds so horrible, doesn't it? Mercenaries. You're just kind of such a mercenary.
He's a mercenary.
You know, I mean, I think it's quite astonishing that Zelensky is still there. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he's been thwarted at every turn, hasn't he, Putin, in terms of overwhelming Ukraine. And this missile attack on the west of Poland is clearly shows that he doesn't just have interest in these two little regions of the far east of Ukraine. So, concerning times, for sure.
Indians accidentally fired a missile at Pakistan.
What? You don't... I noticed...
Nicola. Hi, Nicola. How
India
are you?
accidentally fired a missile at Pakistan. Well, that's not good.
When, Nicola? When was this? Are we talking about way back? Or are we talking about a minute ago?
I mean, I know one of the biggest concerns about India and Pakistan is the fact they're both nuclear countries, and you know, one could, oh God, you don't even want to think about it. I saw Imran Khan came in for criticism for shaking Putin's hand like 2 days after the invasion.
This is the day of the invasion.
Yeah, and he came out, Imran Khan, I used to watch him play cricket and think he was quite a
Good
good
God.
bowler. And I said, this isn't cricket. And he turned around to the West and said, who are you? Are we your lackeys for you to tell us what we should and shouldn't do? Bloody hell.
Are you human? Can you see what's happening?
Yeah. A Ukrainian drone landed in Croatia. Did it, Sharon JL? It's only me. If Zelensky had left, I think Ukraine morale would have been hit and potentially crumbled. I'm in this terrible contradictory place.
Yeah.
That
No, you can say me too.
the more Ukraine push back and succeed, the worse the consequences are going to be.
That's what I feel.
I mean, I think sometimes there's an illogical kind of simplicity to the way this is being reported. I mean, of course, there's morale and everything like that, but it really is going to make things worse.
But the ex-president that was talking to Tom Swarbrick this morning, and Tom was talking around that and saying, you know, is there a time, you know, where you're going to have to negotiate, where Ukraine's going to have to negotiate to stop, you know, these casualties, these just overwhelming casualties. And he said, no, because nothing Putin says is the truth.
Yeah.
He said, we can't. I mean, look how many times they've promised safe corridor for refugees out, and then they've started shelling them. Look at how he kept saying he wasn't going to invade Ukraine.
Yeah.
You can understand why Ukraine are, and it reminded me actually when he said all of that, because I've been moving very much towards that. Is it not now time to acquiesce in some way just to stop the devastation? But he says there'll be devastation anyway.
That's the massive question. And
They
that's the huge dilemma. Is like, you know, if Putin says this is the line in the sand, take it now, and you don't take it, and then it just gets even worse, and he goes for the whole of Ukraine. Will you rue the day that you didn't say, yeah, let's take it?
Yeah, and you know, this is this flip-flopping, emotional flip-flop that we're all in, isn't it? Because I was listening to that, and then I turned on my phone, and there was these photographs of these babies, lots of babies in a basement that were all surrogate babies that Ukrainian women had, because I think you can do the sort of...
Yeah.
Did you see the story yesterday of the two Brits that went and got their twins?
No, I didn't
They'd
mention
used
that,
a surrogate mother in Ukraine and actually managed to get their twins back to this country. But they've got this situation with all these babies and they don't know who they belong to.
Yeah.
And there will be surrogates all across from all over the world that were planning any minute to come and pick up their babies. And you think, and then you go back to, oh my God, somebody's got to negotiate. There's got to be some sort of surrender here, because what's going to happen to all these people? But
Yeah. Me too. He's threatening chemical weapons to scare people into leaving Kiev.
I know.
I agree. Sophie R. on Question Time last week, they said it's highly unlikely that World War III will be nuclear, but will instead look like nothing else we've ever seen before, mainly cyber. I mean, I've read, you know, do you remember the accusations of Russian collusion in the biggest story to come is Russia and Brexit. It's the biggest story. Russia and their funding of the Brexit campaign.
Do you remember when Russia got involved in the American elections?
Well, no, that's my point.
And then Trump went and had a nice little meeting with him. Oh, I've looked him straight in the face. He said he didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, oh my God.
But some people are describing those moments, recent moments in history, as the start of the war, you know, as part of World War III. So I think you're absolutely right, Sophia. Whoever was saying that, you could argue we're already in it.
Well, lots of people say that on the radio, say we're already here.
Yeah.
It's just we're expecting it to look a different way.
Melanie Williams, the one positive outcome of this is it's going to expedite renewable energy infrastructure developed across the West. You're absolutely right. Lots of discussions now about how can we become self-sufficient.
That's
from
why
an energy
every time I'm hearing that on the radio, I'm thinking, oh my God, is this hopefully going to be some weird way where we're going to be able to save the planet in the end?
And I was having a chat with Maddie's boyfriend last night, and we were talking about that prior to this, one of the most sensible kind of energy sources, in a weird way, I was always anti it, was nuclear, because of course it can just keep going. But of course, since the Chernobyl, and since, you know, if you have invaded, suddenly you realise that a nuclear facility can in itself be kind of potentially hijacked and used to destroy you. But the other point is, what's Johnson going to do about this? He was about to head to Saudi Arabia to have discussions about supplying oil, and Saudi Arabia have just executed 81 people in the largest number of executions in one day ever in a 24-hour period. So, you know, this idea that we liaise with countries that only have a sort of impeccable human rights record is nonsense.
Because we've been liaising with Russia all this time, so it's all ridiculous.
Exactly.
And that's why they couldn't go for him in the way that we all wanted them to after Khashoggi was murdered in that horrendous way. Because we knew that we were going to be cap in hand going to Saudi asking for oil. Somebody on the radio today was saying that they have oil heating, and their oil has gone up by 3 times. 3 times, and there's not even any discussion about it. There was somebody on the radio this morning saying the 5 billion fraud that the government has just waved away, they need to get that back. They can't just let that fraud go around Brexit. Not Brexit, around a pandemic. And these oil and gas people are still making huge profits. They're making billions. There has to be a VAT cap or something you were saying, to help people out. Take some of this anxiety. Are they really going to stand back and let people, you know, be overwhelmed by these bills when the big fat cats are making billions? There is a way to reduce these bills for people.
Lee Bridgewater, that's what we've been talking about. Putin has targeted this airfield 15 miles from Poland, where NATO forces have been using. This is what we've been. This is what we've been talking about, how that kind of escalates things. Did anyone see, there was a news story about this rather chilling thing of the ghost of Kiev. Have you heard about this? Apparently there's this Guardian Angel jet pilot who has single-handedly shot down something like 9 Russian jets. And there's a message from this ghost of Kiev saying, "Hello, occupier, I'm flying for your soul." Kind of gives you sort of memories of the Red Baron and all that kind of stuff from World War I. You know, those sort of fighter jets that sort of succeed. And these kind of, you know, these sort of mythological sort of figures in war become sort of morale boosters, don't they? But he's called the Ghost of Kiev, and he just keeps flying around, and he just keeps shooting things down, you know. I mean, he sounds like an absolute whiz. Many Ukrainians on social media have hailed the character as a hero and a guardian angel after hearing stories of bravery and honour.
Have we heard any more from Anonymous?
No, they haven't done anything else, but I'm sure they're planning their next. Now, I'm going to try and move us to something that's a little bit sort of more, not cheerful.
A little brevity.
A little brevity, but you remember the Ukrainian soldiers who told the Russian fighter ship to fuck off?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
But we think they've been captured.
Well, they may have been captured, but they're not dead. Well, Ukraine has issued a new postage stamp that features a soldier sticking his finger
Oh, wow,
up
look
at the
at that.
battleship. Yeah, they've chosen the image for a new postage stamp called Russian Warship Go Fuck Yourself. And this is an official stamp. They've created this as an official stamp. I think that's something to commemorate the phrase uttered by the border guards. So that's. I mean, again, when we say light-hearted, this is within the context of horror.
Where we are.
This is another weird one. Peppa Pig.
Oh, God, can you believe this?
Peppa Pig has cropped up Russia were going to retaliate by nicking certain trademarks.
Sanctions.
Yeah, by appropriating the cartoon character's trademark of Peppa Pig. So what you're going to basically, for example, McDonald's closed all their stores, but the Russians are going to get people to go in and continue making McDonald's.
Yeah.
Just not McDonald's employees. So they're going to ignore trademark. I mean, why do they have?
But
to
they will
observe
have
it?
to have all those ingredients that they won't be able to get. So
But I'm sure the Russian people.
Because if something's slightly wrong with your Big Mac, it's not a Big Mac.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a fake Big Mac.
You can't recreate the Big Mac. And equally, I'm sure Russians, who are going to be going through the most extreme economic uncertainty in their history since the Bolshevik Revolution, are desperately pleased that Peppa Pig in some variety is still going to be plopping around Russia. So, yeah, Peppa Pig is once again...
So they basically promised that nobody will have any copyright...
Yeah, they're going to nick the IP of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is quite significant if you think about it.
It'd be annoying for the makers of Peppa Pig.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of other sort of light-hearted things off the news. I'm not going to talk about the fact that COVID cases are going up in China. I'm going to avoid that.
Or here.
We're just going to...
But, hang on a minute though, because I was really cross with the headline I saw yesterday, going higher than any other time, because there's this new variant of Omicron. So I'm reading down, and then I get just below halfway down, and it says it is no more dangerous than the Omicron.
Oh, there you go.
And now Omicron is below danger of flu. So it was like, and I was saying, well, it's so annoying because that headline, a lot of people wouldn't have read anymore because they would have gone, oh, I don't want to see this bad news. But actually there was good news just below halfway.
Leap here. Christ, things are getting desperate for Putin if he's going after Peppa Pig. You're absolutely right. Some good news. New law banning cyber flashing to be included in the online safety bill, to the point that if any unwanted image is sent to someone on a phone, this is what's being proposed, you could face the maximum penalty of 2 years in prison.
Let's see how often that is actually meted out.
But presumably
never.
But I'm presuming that with tech, if you send stuff, you can trace everything back to who sent it. So there's quite a sort of... It's sort of baked into the crime, an ability to locate the criminal.
Almost half of young women have been targeted, and among teenagers, the figure is
even higher. So this is airdropping images of porn or dick pics.
You're
and all
just
that
sitting
kind of
somewhere
stuff.
and they can just drop a picture.
Happens on the tubes an awful lot if you've
the
got
girls
your
say it
Bluetooth
happens
on.
all the time.
Yeah. So that's good. That's good news. This is a bit silly.
How dark is the good news?
Yeah, that's good news. This is odd. Was he a dangerous driver? Yeah, a dangerous driver was pulled over, and when they went to look at his driving licence, he had a Legoland driving licence. An official member of the Legoland driving school. Officers became suspicious as he was making dangerous manoeuvres. They followed him from Bexley to the Isle of Sheppey, where they arrested him and found him in possession of a driving licence from Legoland.
And a large amount of cannabis.
Yeah. So obviously... He hadn't paid attention. Oh, look, and there's a burnt hole there as well. He's obviously put a piece of cannabis, a joint out in it. So, you've got Legoland. In Northumberland, a lamb has been born with 5 legs. And they say this as if it's a benefit, but I reckon that's really annoying, don't you?
Oh, yeah, you don't want 5 legs if you can't use them.
No, absolutely. A farm in Northumberland welcomed an unusual addition to its flock. 5-legged lamb was born on the 22nd of February, the second time it's happened in 25 years. Despite its extra limb, the female is said to be healthy. Imagine having an extra leg coming out of your chest.
Look at that. The teenagers sent to war with only 3 days training.
Oh, don't.
Well, I mean, look at most of the Ukrainians have had no training. They've just been
trying to get us away.
Oh, sorry.
Keep dragging us back. And finally, does anyone know what PGI stands for? What do you think PGI stands for? Does anyone know what PGI stands for? see if anyone can guess. What do you think it stands for? You're dead, aren't you? Because of the war. You've just. It's...
No, I just couldn't possibly think what PGI
PGI.
stands
Anyone
for
knows what PGI stands for?
When it comes to leaks.
It stands for Protected Geographical Indication.
How the hell was anyone going to guess that?
So, for example, in Cornwall, a protected geographical indicator is the Cornish pasty. And this one is the leek. The Welsh leek is going to have protected status.
I love leek and potatoes.
Yeah,
Loads of butter.
Absolutely. So there we go, guys. We're gonna wrap up there. Hope you have a lovely Sunday. There's gonna be the No Name Sunday show landing soon, and yeah, enjoy. Have a lovely day, and thanks for sharing in this moment.
And I'll be putting a recipe up on my What's for Dinner series on Instagram later, so keep your eye.
Oh, there you go. Lots of love, guys. Big hugs. Bye.